I don't think you need it, but if you're going to feel better, do it. And it's been wonderful. I'm really thrilled with it.
When you look at before and after, what's your reaction?
Wow. It's fabulous. It really is.
Were you scared going into it?
Yeah, a little bit.
What were you thinking?
I kept saying, oh, you're...
A blue flare meant that the Iraqis are commencing with chemical warfare. They're launching a chemical attack.
How often were you alerted to the possibility of chemicals in the air?
Maybe a dozen times.
A dozen times during your tour of duty?
Right.
This Gulf War vet asked us to protect his identity because he fears backlash for going public. He served in the Army's 2nd Brigade, 3rd Armored Division. He claims to have been in King Khalid military city, an area where chemicals have been detected by a Czechoslovakian military unit. Last week's NBC's Now program quoted a Pentagon spokesman while showing a map saying U.S. troops weren't in the area, and that makes him mad.
What were they talking about on the map?
Where the Czechoslovakians supposedly detected chemical warfare, and the military said that there was no U.S. ground troops in that area.
And you were there?
Correct.
You were in those cities?
Correct.
Those cities are King Khalid and Haifa al-Batin, both in Saudi Arabia. He says he has copies of some records that reflect the 3rd Division's troop movement.
All these papers reaccount the 2nd Brigade, 3rd Armored Division's role in the desert there. And this is typed word from the log, which Lieutenant Chester kept, who was in charge of the military intelligence section.
Why do you think the U.S. government's lying, if in fact they are?
Well, our government's been lying to us about the Agent Orange deal for years and years, and the government does not want the responsibility to take care of these soldiers. I want the government to say, yes, it did happen. Yes, there was chemicals. That's what I'd like the government to say.
The Pentagon says there is no apparent link between chemical agents and illnesses reported by Persian Gulf vets. They're calling it another mystery. Still, the Veterans Administration in St. Paul told me any Persian Gulf vets who are feeling sick get to a VA hospital immediately. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
What do we get? 5, 2.5, 5, and no 5, and no 5. That's all of all. Hey, what do we get? 5 here? Where's 3? $3. Hey, 3. Get $3 for them. $2.50. $3. Roll the mashers. 3. Now 4.
They came from miles around, braving the cold and an approaching storm to get a piece of both movie and American history.
We're here to buy a wood stove back that my son sold at Disney World.
How much did your son pay for the stove initially?
$25.
And how much did Disney give him for?
$250.
Yeah, $2.22. Which one would you like, sir?
The crowd is bidding to buy antiques used as props in the movie Iron Will. Northern Minnesota played host to the movie makers, who sold most of the props to local businessman Doug Mullen. Today was his chance to get rid of the props he helped Disney find.
I've inventoried this stuff 6 or 7 times now. I've moved it 6 or 7 times. My back is getting sore, and I'm glad to see it gone. I hope I never have to see it again.
Hey, 3. Get $3 for them. $2.50.
Almost 3,000 pieces of Americana were auctioned. Clocks, phones, antique goggles, stereo viewers, and these cash registers. And speaking of money,
I think about $50, maybe.
If somebody comes and says 55, will you bump up to 60?
I don't know yet. We'll have to see when I'm caught up in the action of bidding.
And who's got $10 on a barrel ball?
not everyone got up in the action of bidding. Now, most of these people who came to the auction today think they came to an old train depot. Well, that's partially true.
We're standing in my living room inside the Winter Street Depot, Sioux Line Depot.
This is your house.
Yeah, it's been our house since October of '92 when we moved in.
You realize you're standing in someone's house?
No, I didn't.
Have you owned a TV before?
No, I haven't.
This would be the first time, huh?
This would be the first time, yeah.
47, yeah, that was you.
From first-time buyers to those who have been at it for years, this was the bargain basement location of the day. Why isn't your son here himself?
Because he's out hunting. It's deer hunting in Minnesota, you know. So we got the job.
Reporting from the old Sioux Line Depot in Superior, Chip Wallace.
Sold, 2250 number, 53 is a bidder.
News 6.
An obligation to be a leader. We've talked about, I do know, during the summer coming here, and anywhere in this country, throwing televised ads and the need for uniforms is just plain stupid. It's also, by the way, going to have a tremendous quick to criticize the legislative branch and talk about term limits and unicameralism. He's real quick to talk about school boards and say, well, you people ought to change, don't give pay raises, don't look at the right to strike. He's real quick on the foreign policy, look at the federal government and say, federal government, you're all wrong too. But when it, and I don't care what you say, Arnie, no more.
Come on. Here we go, here. There we go. All right. There we go. I see we'll get the SPCA vote here. Yeah. Come on. This state. And what really galls me is last August, we have this gang summit, and all of the street gangs of America decide to use Minnesota as their forum. And they come in.
I can't afford another trespassing. I got $5,000 bail and a restraining order to stay away from Mr. Hill and Mr. Meyer. And if they walk onto the farm, my is in jail for $5,000.
Mark Doofman is a cattle farmer near Mizpah in rural northern Minnesota. He's paranoid because he was recently arrested for aggravated assault. Thomas Held, a hunter from Sartell, says Doofman shot past his ear and over the head of another hunter, Richard Meyer. Doofman says that's not true.
I was shooting at a deer, and I suppose in that thin brush, the bullets were winding around. And that's why I've told these people, when you get onto my place, I don't know who shoots at what, but we're going to be shooting at each other.
We're standing near the area where Mr. Held said you shot right past his ear. Is that true?
Well, I was close enough to them, just like you and me. I had to take a couple steps back to do it.
Did you back up and shoot at him?
No.
The incident took place on November the 6th. 10 years to the day, George Yantz, another cattle farmer, chased 2 deer hunters off his property while shooting over their heads. And he spent 2 years in prison. The mandatory minimum prison sentence for assault with a firearm is 36 months.
Are you afraid that may happen?
The potential is always there.
Doofman hopes he can win in court. Formal charges will be filed this week by the Koochiching County Attorney. Reporting from near Mizpah, Chip Wallace, News 6. 3, 2, 1. Reporting from near Mizpah, Chip Wallace, Care 11. 3, 2, 1. Reporting from near Mizpah, Minnesota, Chip Wallace for NBC News.
With those funds, we are going to be providing toys to needy children. We'll be providing winter clothing to those who have need of that, as well as food baskets for well over 1,000 families here in the Northland that are going to come to us for Christmas dinner.
After 16 months of negotiations, we did obtain a first contract that was ratified. Many people who organize never get that first contract.
Bruce Lottie is a steel worker and a union member. He helped organize the local at ME International, manufacturers of taconite mining equipment in Duluth. He and other union advocates met with AFL-CIO executive board members to discuss their problems.
Mainly in discipline, where they would take and write up an employee for some minor infraction and turned a blind eye to an employee that didn't have any union sympathies.
I went from being a top salesperson, very respected by management, down to absolutely nothing.
Kim Knudsen used to work for Frito-Lay in Bloomington. After a 4-month organizing campaign, she wasn't fired, but
it was deemed constructive discharge because they made my life miserable enough through their tactics that I just had to finally quit.
What kind of tactics?
Calling me at home, horror music on my answering machine.
What kind of music?
Horror music, like an organ music that you'd hear on a horror film, you know, kind of like death music, I called it.
What was your annual salary? $32,000.
The AFL-CIO Executive Board and the Workers' Organizing Rights Commission listened to testimony from over 30 pro-union workers. The debate continued into the afternoon. The next hearing is set for December the 12th in St. Cloud, followed by a 4th and final hearing in Mankato on January the 15th. Then a final report of issues discussed and suggestions made will be presented to state legislators. Reporting from Grand Rapids, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Accountability issue. The board really should be aware of what those salaries are.
What's going on?
Yeah, and I mean it's a maybe a $20,000 to $25,000 contract, but still
incentive packages, and I guess there's about 8 according to the director. Nobody had the raw data or the figures. And the board members made a comment that they really don't set those salaries, that they let the director set all those salaries, so they really didn't know what those people made.
This car, because it sure is a nice one.
I many times not only get the pain in the lower back and in the hip and down the leg, some tingling in the toes, Duluth chiropractor Dr. Peter Lukowski still suffers serious back pain over a year after his accident. Duluth attorney Harry Munger also suffers back and neck pain from his accident. The same thing happened to both men while driving their GMC Suburbans. For no apparent reason, the bolt holding the driver's side seat sheared off, abruptly dropping the bucket seat back into a fully reclined position.
I was coming back from Minneapolis. It was about 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden I was driving along with about 65 miles an hour with cruise control on, 65, 68, and boom, just like an explosion in the car.
Both Munger and Lukowski complained to General Motors and found they weren't alone. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has been investigating complaints of seatback bolt failure in 4 types of GM vehicles for over a year. The vehicles included in the recall are 1989 through 1990 Suburbans and 1985 through 1991 Astro and Safari minivans. General Motors has now voluntarily offered to replace the front recliner bolts with a stronger one, acknowledging that the current bolts can break easily, allowing the seatback to unexpectedly collapse, resulting in a sudden loss of vehicle control and potential for a crash. Harry Munger says the move could save a lot of lives.
What I was worried about was some other people that were going to get hurt, some grandchildren, some young people that were going to, innocent people that would be victimized because of a car going out of control.
Following the news reports in July, U.S. Congressman Jim Oberstar began an inquiry of his own, questioning why the Department of Transportation was taking so long in its investigation and raising questions about the safety of the hundreds of thousands of vehicles still on the road. His inquiries, coupled with hundreds of complaints from GM vehicle owners following our reports, prompted General Motors to make the recall decision even without orders from the Department of Transportation. In Duluth, Minnesota, Barbara Riles for NBC News. General Motors plans to recall all 1985 through 1991 Astro and Safari minivans and all 1989 through 1990 Suburban vehicles equipped with recliner-type front bucket seats. In July, we reported that the bolts which hold the seats up easily break in these types of vehicles, allowing the seat to unexpectedly collapse, dropping the driver into the back seat, sometimes when the vehicle is being operated at high speeds. As General Motors admits, that unexpected collapse could and has resulted in sudden loss of vehicle control and crashes. GM will replace the front seat recliner bolts. We wondered why the original bolt, which apparently wasn't strong enough, was used in the first place. And so we asked a former longtime General Motors senior engineer.
I believe that someone made a cost decision, and it was an erroneous one. And then after a decision like that is made, it's a difficult thing to admit that there is error, because then there's going to have to be corrections made. Recalls cost money.
The GM recall will cost an estimated $7 to $10 million. The decision to recall the nearly 700,000 vehicles came after a News 6 report in July triggered complaints across the country from people who had experienced the same problem we outlined in our stories. Congressman Jim Oberstar also got involved in the investigation following our reports. He feared for the safety of those still operating the vehicles in question.
Your story on the issue that made it, that was picked up by the networks, became a national issue, and drivers around the country who had experienced similar seat failure also wrote into the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and that really prompted them into vigorous action against GM, resulting in the recall.
In Duluth, Minnesota, Barbara Riles for NBC News.
Well, nobody said it would be easy. I started trying to lose weight back in July, and I talked with all the experts. I changed what I ate, when I ate, and how much I exercised, but after a few months, not much changed. I lost about a dozen pounds early on, but I've gone up and down ever since.
A major transition time in life is like pushing in the clutch, being in a standard transmission car, going down a hill and pushing in the clutch. And it's like we're not engaged. And so there's no structure.
When I first started trying to lose weight, the experts I talked to said there could be some things that would slow me down. Maybe moving, a change in job, or perhaps some changes in my family. I encountered them all in just the past few months. With all the changes going on around me, I unconsciously held on to one of the few familiar parts to my day, the meals.
This is not a time to abuse yourself in any way. You need to eat simply. You need to take care of yourself. You need to get enough rest. You need to do all those kinds of things. And unfortunately, most changes mediate against doing those kinds of things.
But all is not lost, so to speak. I can make another concerted effort to make progress, and despite the reputation of the holiday season, eating wisely is attainable.
When you sit down for the meal, eat what you like, enjoy yourself, but limit it to one serving. You don't have to have seconds. Part of enjoying yourself is leaving the table feeling intact of your senses.
So it's possible to get through the rest of the year and stay healthy even with the temptations of a holiday feast. It's also possible to establish good habits even if your life doesn't cooperate. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
It's hard to do. It takes a few weeks, probably a month or so to really...
You want me to pass you? Oh,
What do we got here?
this is Vencio's house. Os 3 dias regresa nomás. Pero yo creo que con este ya vamos a mejorar. ¿Ya? Okay. Yeah. There's alcohol and there's Who, Bencio?
Baby Rich.
Oh, the incision would be too small anyway.
A little wider one would be good. I think there's... So they actually, but it was actually laced right there.
Oh, yes.
They didn't buy the...
No, you don't get...
Done so much work. You want to show us around again?
Yeah, we'll show you around.
I only found one.
But this, come on in and we'll give you a...
Wipe your sheet feet off, folks.
Earl,
Yes.
here's what the doors...
First international bridge built across the Pigeon River. It was built without the official sanction of the government.
This is so important, so that these people waited for this day.
Thank you.
A peace plan brokered by the European community. NBC's Keith Miller tonight on what makes this plan different.
Using a mix of threats and promises, European mediators got all sides in the Bosnian conflict to return to the negotiating table for the first time in 2 months. An offer to suspend economic sanctions against Serbia in return for a concession on land for the Muslims was enough to get all sides talking again. Bread lines in the Serbian capital of Belgrade provides a good picture of just how hard the embargo is hurting the country. Inflation is now growing by 0.5% every hour. $1 is now worth 60 million dinars. It is a country of millionaires, on paper, who can hardly afford to eat. A loaf of bread costs 2 million dinars. You can't find bread at any price in some areas of Bosnia. UN food convoys have been prevented from crossing front lines. This convoy of flour reached Vitez, but most of the region has been without any aid for a month because of heavy fighting and severe winter storms. In Geneva today, all sides pledged safe passage for UN convoys. The talks resume tomorrow on the dispute over borders, but few people predict an immediate breakthrough. Keith Miller, NBC News.
An American diplomat kidnapped in Yemen.
Dobar znak.
Kako da ne? To je sramota ovo.
Vodu penzionere da iz ovog reda izađu.
Aj, nemoj ovim cigačima, nemoj.
Postoji drugi.
Da li je mnogo ne?
Molim.
Stani vam. Matka uvijek vam.
Marie Canziani is going to her sociology class here at UMD. She is young, 18 years old, and quite attractive. She's also a potential victim for the largest growing form of assault, date rape.
I used to, dress nice, do my hair, do my makeup all the time, kind of flirt with people thinking that I was harmless until this happened.
What happened was she and her friend had gone to a party, and someone she knew approached her.
He just asked us tons of questions, started coming on to us, put his hands on us, and I'm like, please leave. My friend was begging for him to leave.
I swear a testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
In an effort to enlighten and inform students as well as the public, a mock date rape trial was staged today at UMD. Over 150 students watched, mostly women. One of the biggest misnomers about date rape is forced sex. Experts on the issue say there are many other forms of the assault besides the physical.
There's certainly an emotional rape. So someone may call and breathe heavy on the phone or make obscene remarks to someone over the phone. Letters, sexual innuendos in the hallway. I mean, it's something that I think you see in a lot of public schools now.
Date rape is defined as forced sex between two people who know each other. 80% of the rapes in this country are date rapes.
I felt really ashamed. I felt dirty. I felt really bad about things.
So where does this leave young people like Marie?
Ever since I meet new guys, and I keep guard. I don't really let people come in close to me until I've known them for a while and seen that I can trust them.
In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
That's not
that they meet and they say, this is what we can do to save money. And then by the next quarter, let's see if it works. Let's put that into action. I think this year might.
The National Transportation Safety Board says ice is by no means the main factor they're looking at as the cause of the crash of Flight 5719. Spokesmen say a memo leaked to the press indicating there had been a small amount of ice on the tail probably means nothing. But they say there are other factors that may be much more important. Leo Janssens, the president of the Aviation Safety Institute in Worthington, Ohio, claims this type of plane has a bad track record when it comes to landing in icy conditions, and he would like to see the investigation focus more in this area.
Ice is an insidious type factor. It changes the aerodynamic characteristics of the airplane.
But NTSB spokesmen say they're looking at other, perhaps more significant factors, such as the angle of descent and the speed at which the plane was coming in. Flight 5719 began its descent toward Hibbing at 4,500 feet, 2 miles from the airport. It was coming in at a rate of 2,500 feet per minute at a very steep angle. NTSB investigator Alan Pollock in Washington says that was probably to avoid an ice buildup on the wings and tail. He says, had the plane had a ground proximity warning system, the pilot would have known exactly how close he was to the ground, or in this case, the tops of the trees he hit. This aircraft was under FAA order to install the warning system by April of 1994, just 4 months from the time of Hibbing's fatal crash. FAA spokesmen say in March of 1992, all turboprop planes with 10 seats or more were ordered to install the ground warning systems within 2 years. It would be up to the company that manages the airplanes to make sure the deadline was met. In the case of Flight 5719, it would have been up to Northwest Airlink. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Well, all the bridges on the state trunk highway system are inspected regularly under both federal and state rules. And those inspections are physical inspections. The bridges are ranked and rated by their condition. And should ever a bridge reach a point of deterioration where it poses any potential threat to the safety of the motoring public, we would immediately close that structure immediately.
Yeah, we felt very lucky with the weather we've had so far. Can't count on this in December very often.
The faster we can get it open, the better it'll be for the business community, and that's our commitment to the business community, and it looks as though we're going to be able to make that commitment and then some.
is that in our food shelves in our Salvation Army, the requests for food are up 20%. They were up 20% in 1993. The donations to those same organizations are down about 20%.
Thanks, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. The tables were lined with all kinds of toys. From Barbies to trucks, there was enough to delight any child. They were there so that parents of low income could help their kids hold on to the innocent dreams of Christmas.
They've been hoping for like Legos. My son's into Legos quite a bit.
Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
When they leave today, they'll be looking to a Christmas that will be well provided for thanks to the generosity of this community.
Throughout the Northland, this scene was replayed today. The items and the money to buy what wasn't given came from the community in which it was donated.
And while this distribution is wonderful to watch, there are still more people out there who can't be helped. The need is up to about 7% this year over last, while giving has remained about the same. The Salvation Army is hoping to collect more money this week to fill the void.
You've all seen the bell ringers, and they're going to still be out for days to come. And I would encourage everyone to reach down just a little bit deeper and contribute to the bell ringers as well.
Especially with times being so tough as they are, you know, hard to get by from week to week sometimes.
Some 1,700 Duluth area families were helped during today's distribution. They took home not only toys for the kids, but also a box of Christmas dinner fixings and a warm blanket. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
In recent years, these residents of Moose Lake have seen the old state hospital in their city become home to minimum security prisoners. Within weeks, the mission of that hospital turning prison will include the housing of medium security inmates from Stillwater and St. Cloud prisons.
Medium security implies inmates who need a double perimeter fence. They have served a portion of their time. Their custody level is beginning to decline as they serve that time, but they aren't quite close enough to release to be classified minimum.
Eventually, the Moose Lake Willow River Prison will house 620 medium security inmates. Their crimes range from murder to sexual assault to burglary. In Moose Lake, the biggest concern is whether the city's small police force will be adequate to handle potential problems.
The biggest problem that we see is when they transport these prisoners downtown, you know, to the Mercy Hospital, to the dentist, to the eye doctors and this type of thing. This is where I think the biggest problems are going to come in, and then along with the visitors that are showing up.
Moose Lake's police force has just 3 full-time and 3 part-time officers. Chief Bruce Manty believes his staff will need to nearly double to handle the changing makeup of his community.
I would like to see the prison functioning perfectly normal, no problems whatsoever. And that along with the PP hospital the same way, but it's not going to happen. You know, there's going to be problems.
Want a cookie?
No, just taters. I think that's it.
Well, that's the important part of this. We feel there's more than one thing going on here. There is a service to help people Christmas spiritually, and of course there's the dimension of the food, and more importantly, there's an opportunity for people to serve and be served.
I would run.
Just got a call from the superintendent.
Five families gone on one block alone.
It's almost too easy.
Although Home Alone is a fictional story, the truth is burglars prey on empty homes during the holiday season. But there's a few things you can do to protect your home from thieves. Daryl Roberg of the Duluth Police says it's a good idea to let a trusted neighbor or friend know when you're going to be away.
Have them check the driveways, sidewalks, to make sure that they're clear of snow so the snow doesn't gather up. Make sure they check the mailboxes for newspapers and mail so that doesn't gather up, to give people the impression that you've left for the weekend.
Hi, we can't take your call because we're gone until New Year's Day, but leave your name and number and we'll get back to you.
If you're going to be away from home during the holidays, make sure your answering machine doesn't tip off potential burglars. You don't have to go through this much trouble to make it appear that you're at home.
It's advisable to use timers on indoor, outdoor lights and your TV so that it gives a impression that you are home.
Roberg also suggests that you record the serial and model numbers of valuable items so police can track them down if they do get stolen. And even if you're in a hurry to get out of town, remember to lock the doors and don't forget your kids. In Duluth, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Village Police Department.
And I'd like to get a ladder up here on this vent so we can pull the vent at the same time.
Things like hair dryers and stuff are a little safer, and you don't leave it unattended, and don't use anything with a flame, like torches and stuff like that, because in old homes it just takes a fraction of a second, and those things go and they'll smolder for hours, maybe even a day before it'll burst out.
Not really. After 30 below, what's the difference? What's a couple of more degrees?
Doesn't seem to bother you.
Not at all. Nothing starts, but we navigate pretty good.
All these places, they've all been given these bags, right? And out of that, so you've given 40,000 giving away candles.
I don't know. They possibly are.
Given out here, they're given out at the banks in town and some of the other local establishments. And I would say over 20,000 bags have already been picked up, and we're hoping all 40,000 will be.
Snowmobiling is a fast-growing hobby and sport, and the Northland is quickly becoming the place to hit the trails. But officials know it can also be a dangerous sport. Promoting safety is the thrust behind a new IRRRB campaign. The $10,000 campaign focuses not only on educating Northlanders, but also on educating tourists.
You know, we do have quite a few number of tourists coming into the area. We're promoting the sport, and I really think it's, you know, we need to promote safety as part of our total tourism promotion efforts.
The campaign includes snowmobile training for area youth, public service announcements, brochures, posted speed limits, and signs against drinking and driving. 10 billboards will catch the attention of tourists heading to the Northland.
As these people come in from Detroit, Chicago, or wherever, we want to make sure they know what the rules are on trail speeds and to be aware of the drinking and driving problems.
Snowmobiling is big business here in northeastern Minnesota. Last year, snowmobile-related revenues totaled near $50 million, and that's a figure that's expected to rise.
It's big business. It's now surpassing cross-country skiing and lots of other
wintertime sports. I don't know if it exceeds ice fishing yet, which is pretty popular up here, but from a tourism standpoint, it is big business.
And that's good news for the IRRB and the Northland. In Evelyn, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
Strange things, strange events, and that. But, you know, certainly we didn't consider him, though, to be particularly dangerous. I mean, he hasn't been assaulted anyone in the past, and we felt that we could follow him and get him stopped and take him into custody in such a manner, though the deputy certainly used caution. If he was, did have one of the weapons.
With the Lake Superior Zoo now for the last 4 years, and we look forward to kind of teaming up an event that brings not only families but communities together. So it's just a great day to get families out, enjoy the day, see the zoo, bring everybody together. Kind of a great way to kick off the new year.
See the tiger? See the tiger? Grace, this way. Grace. Where's that tiger? This way. Right, see the tiger. See the tiger? Oh, okay, let's go.
Healthcare reform is calling upon providers to provide the same outcomes, the same service at a lesser expense. And so that's a challenge that we're preparing for. This is a part of that.
Look for opportunities and the impact your team members, that's our motivation. And we'll do that.
Could you say, are you expecting they don't need that?
Keewatin's National Steel, Diamond Tool and Horseshoe, Highland Super Value, and the 6th Avenue IGA, all casualties of the Northland's economy, and the list is growing.
Duluth's Woolworth store closed its doors for good yesterday, a sign of the times. Officials say the Northland has seen an increase in the last year in the number of dislocated workers.
Woolworth's manager watches as the store he fought to keep in business is slowly dismantled. Greg Bolf has been working for the company for more than 2 decades and by his own admission says he needs help finding a new job.
But I would like to have the resume professionally done so I can leave it off at wherever I go to an interview with.
We can help you with that. We're real skilled at doing that.
Thanks to the state's dislocated worker program, Bolf and the rest of the Woolworth employees are getting a refresher course and starting a new career.
Maybe one of you just needs a resume. Maybe some of you need to update your skills. Maybe some of you need to be completely retrained. This program is based on individual need.
This class, put on by Minnesota's Job Service, teaches dislocated workers how to get back on their feet through resumes, practice interviews, and support groups.
But this program is special, and there's nothing magic about it. It's still tough to lose your job. It's especially tough to lose a job you've had a long time.
And Gordy Peterson should know his classes are becoming fuller each year. Northland officials know the problem all too well and are assuring a brighter future. But for dislocated workers like Janet Bames, reassurance comes with the knowledge they need to help themselves.
Are you a little more optimistic?
Yes, I feel a lot more optimistic now. I feel like maybe it's not as bad as it seemed a week ago. Maybe there is, it's just nice to know that somebody is going to help us.
In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
We usually have a real good turnout. We did have a good turnout considering the weather.
Definitely nice to have all this new snow, huh?
It's pretty, and it's really nice if you look back up over on the hills and that. It's really pretty.
Yeah, definitely.
The snow didn't hurt us too much.
Take a left at the Mashabili tent to enter the stadium.
Hundreds of fans started jockeying for the best position to watch the start of the 11th annual John Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon early in the afternoon. Ranging from all ages, for many, this was the first Bear Grease ever.
Very first one. Been hearing about it for years, though. Couldn't wait to get here.
Are you excited?
Yes.
What do you think of it?
Fine.
The promoters and sponsors hope the thrill and emotion of the unique event brings notoriety to Duluth, and with that, money.
This is an event that just grows on itself. It just builds its own excitement. The visuals are there. The storylines are there.
In marketing, we bring out the fact that we test market our boots here at the John Bear Grease Sled Dog Race.
Over 30 mushers from around the world are running in this year's race, many for the first time, many are old pros at the sport.
I'm here to train for the Iditarod. These dogs haven't had any real long miles on them. You know, I want to play with them and let them have a little bit of fun.
The dogs really are the athletes, and we're just the drivers and the coaches, and it's a great sport that women and men can compete equally.
Then at 4 o'clock sharp, the first sled dog team, piloted by Peter Smars of Orinoco, Minnesota, took off. Most of the mushers hope to make it up to the Finland area before calling it quits for the night. The 500-mile race is not only a test of endurance for man and dog, but a test of strategy as well. Come Thursday, we'll see who has the best of both. In Duluth, Chip Wallace, News 6.
Australia is a very popular country here, and we would like to bring the taste of Australian food here and to bring close Australia to USA.
Yeah, I'm happy to win the race. You know, we just get, I guess, because I manage this whole kennel and try to get everything together, I just realize when I hit that finish line what's all in front of me. So it's kind of like drop this dog team off and go hook up another one and head for someplace else. So I imagine that it'll take a day or two to sink in.
Quite clearly that rights are derived from God and that law is derived from
here. A great deal of political
I did not say there was tens of thousands of people in the Netherlands. I gave, basically, please don't kill me if I'm putting the horse related, because the living will is one step in the slippery slope that Frank doesn't want to talk about. The living will, you heard it with his own mouth. He said, withdraw food and water. What civilized nation withdraws food and water? That is not the natural dying process. That is starving someone to death.
I get a little sick and tired of the slippery slope argument and the misconceptions that I think Ralph has put forth here. A great deal of political hyperbole, and I think name-calling, talking about this effort being very similar to the genocidal practices of a very devious Third Reich.
What it's about is whether it's right or not to do this particular. On October 28th, WGMO radio in Shell Lake, Frank, the killing of people by physicians. There's not one case where it did not lead
to request assistance in the dying process. In securing that assistance, the individual who is terminally ill must secure the opinions of two medical people, doctors, who certify that in their opinion the individual has less than 6 months to live.
September 16th, workers with National Steel arrive at the Keewatin plant gate and are told without a contract in place, they're out of a job.
I think you are making a very, very grave mistake. You know what this workforce has done for you?
14 days later, International Steelworker President Lynn Williams comes to Nashua to rally his followers and to warn other steel companies about doing business with National.
I urge you in the spirit of common sense and simple justice and fairness, stay the hell out of this dispute and don't...
On October 11th, Governor Carlson came to Hibbing to discuss possible state funding to improve operations at National in Keewatin. He all but promised the aid to other companies as well.
And whatever services we make available to one, we intend to make available for all.
4 days after the governor's visit, negotiations to end the labor dispute at National fell apart amid declarations of war.
We're going to make them hurt, and when they hurt, then they can come back to the table with us.
But National doesn't appear to be hurting. It's found other suppliers, including other companies on the range. So now it's the union that's heading off to meet with the owners in Japan. The trip begins tomorrow. Officials expect to be back on the range next weekend.
Despite the sub-zero temperatures, the march went on as planned today. A march to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A large group, bundled up, made their way down Superior Street to the deck.
Dr. Martin Luther King marched through all types of adversity, and if all we have to do to help with the struggle is march through a little cold weather, we took the challenge.
After a quick warm-up in the deck lobby, the celebration of remembering Dr. King began. More than recounting the past and the accomplishments of Dr. King, the bulk of today's ceremony was centered around what, in the spirit of Dr. King, could be done to improve the future. The keynote speaker at today's rally was former Dallas Cowboy defensive back Rod Hill. He directed his message mainly at the young people in the audience, urging them to follow in the footsteps of Dr. King down the path of enlightenment, stressing that through education, their generation could realize the dreams of the man they were honoring.
Well, I think the main message for them is to believe in themselves, and more importantly, to depend on themselves. And don't use all the different problems we have in society as a crutch, and to step above that and go on with your life.
In Duluth, Ted Rowlands, News 6.
This home was destroyed by fire after the owner attempted to thaw frozen pipes. This house was the victim of an overheated wood stove. As the mercury drops, the chance of fire increases, and the ability to combat those fires becomes extremely difficult. Last Friday, this fire in Iron River, caused by the reheating of pipes, required additional help, not because of the size of the blaze, but because the firefighters on the scene were suffering from frostbite.
Yeah, we've had to keep rotating the men there because it's getting too cold there, so I'm sitting in the ambulance and the rescue rigs.
Sunday's fire at the Chinese Lantern was another example of how firefighting efforts were hampered by the weather. A city bus was brought in and converted into a warming house. Crews work in shifts to prevent extended exposure. In addition to frozen people, the possibility for equipment failure is also increased in bitterly cold conditions.
We get iced up so we can hardly move. Sometimes that's a difficulty. Our gear gets sprayed and it gets stiff so that we can't bend and we get inflexible. That makes things difficult.
Although the temperatures make fighting fires difficult, they are not unexpected. Northland firefighters are trained to work in these conditions. After all, it comes with the territory.
We dress pretty warm in these days. I've got long underwear, tops and bottoms on, and we wear a lot of warm clothes.
In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
May be able to take more students. Right now there are 7,500 students, and it is quite possible